So, good day everyone. I am Christina Marina Pada Cagantes and I will be discussing Section 3, Condonation or Remission of the Debt. So, in Section 3, which is the condonation or remission of the debt. So, in Article 1 to 70, condonation or remission is essentially gratuitous and requires the acceptance by the obligor. It may be expressly or impliedly. One and the other kind shall be subject to the rules which govern inofficious donations. Express condonation shall furthermore comply with the forms of donation. So, basically, condonation refers to the voluntarily forgiveness or pardon of a debt. And remission refers to the reduction or cancellation of a debt, penalty, or punishment. It also involves the partial forgiveness of an obligation or liability. So there are requisites of condonation or remission. It must be gratuitous, it must be accepted by the debtor, the obligation must be demandable, the parties must have capacity, the condonation must not be inefficacious, and the condonation must comply with the forms of donation if it is an express condonation. So there are two forms of donation of a movable and the donation of an immovable. So donation of a movable may be made orally or in written. So oral donation requires the simultaneous delivery of the thing, but if it exceeds 5,000 pesos, the donation shall be made in writing. The donation and the acceptance shall be made in writing. Otherwise, the donation shall be void. And the donation of an immovable, it must be made in a public document specifying therein the property donated and the value of the charges which the donee must satisfy. So there are kinds of remission or condonation. So there are, as to form, there are two, express and implied. So express, when it is made in accordance with the formalities prescribed by law for donation. And implied, when although it is not made in accordance with the formalities prescribed by law or donation, it can be deducted from the acts of the obligee or creditor. The next is as to extent, there are two also, total and partial. So total is when the entire obligation is extinguished, or in simple words, complete cancellation of debt or obligation. And next is the partial, which is the reduction of debt or obligation but not complete cancellation. Kaya ang total, complete cancellation of the debt or obligation. Ang partial is reduction ra, dili siya complete, dili unlike sa total. And then, as to constitution, so there are two, inter vivos and mortis causa. So in simple word, inter vivos is a donation made during the donor's lifetime. Unlike the mortis causa, the donation made in contemplation of death. So it is stated here in the book na it will take effect during the lifetime of the donor, and ang mortis causa is it will take effect upon the death of the donor. So that's the Article 1 to 70 all about the condonation or remission of the contract. Next is Article 1271, the delivery of a private document evidencing a credit made voluntarily by the creditor to the debtor implies the renunciation of the action which the former had against the later. If in order to nullify this waiver it should be claimed to be inefficacious, the debtor and his heirs must uphold it by providing that the delivery of the document was made in virtue of payment of the debt. So, in simple words, Article 1271 is all about cancellation of a contracts. And if a contract is cancelled, it is called rescission. So Article 1271 is crucial in protecting the rights of parties who have entered into contracts that are unfair, oppressive, or obtained through fraudulent means. It provides remedy for parties who have been taken advantage of, and ensures that justice is served. So, inofficious literally means nga kanang donation sidya nga considered invalid or ineffective kay wala sidya, it wasn't made in proper authority or formalities. So, manigingon diri ang para ma-nullify ang inyong contract, dapat na ang donation is inofficious, which is kanang ang donation nga wala ka na inform or without formalities, like gihatag lang diretso nga na. So that's all for Article 1 to 70 and 1 to 71.
Good day everyone, my name is Janame Aranga and now I will be discussing about Article 1272. Whenever the private document in which the debt appears is found in the possession of the debtor, it shall be presumed that the creditor delivered it voluntarily, unless the contrary is proved. So, it means that if a document showing a debt is found with the debtor, it is assumed that the creditor canceled the debt by giving the document to the debtor. It means that if a document showing a debt is found with the debtor, it is assumed that the creditor canceled the debt by giving the document to the debtor. So since it is all a presumption, the creditor can always overcome this kind of presumption by proving that the creditor did not deliver the document to the debtor. So that's all for the Article 1272. And now I will be discussing the Article 1273. The renunciation of the principal debt shall extinguish the accessory obligation, but the waiver of the latter shall leave the former in force. So first, let's talk about the principal debt. So the principal debt is the main obligation or debt, such as the amount borrowed or the goods purchased. Next is accessory obligations. Accessory obligations is additional obligations that arise from the principal debt, such as interest, penalties, or security agreements. So in simpler terms, if the main debt is cancelled, then the additional obligations that is attached to it will also be cancelled. However, if the only additional obligations were waived, the main debt will still need to be paid. So that's all for the Article 1273. And now I will discuss the Article 1274. It is presumed that the accessory obligation of pledge has been remitted when the thing pledged, after its delivery to the creditor, is found in the possession of the debtor or of a third person who owns the thing. So, simply, if a borrowed item or the pledge is returned to the debtor, it is assumed that the debt is forgiven, unless proven otherwise. So that's all for the Article 1272 to Article 1274.
So hello everyone, my name is Clarissa Pantan. I'm here to report in Section 4, Confusion or Merger of Rights. So in Article 1275, the obligation is extinguished from the time the characters of creditor and debtor are merged in the same person. So in Article 1275 speaks of confusion or merger of rights. Confusion or merger of rights is the meeting in one person of the qualities of obligee and obligor with respect to the same obligation. So the characters of the creditor and the debtor are mixed in the same person. So since it is nonsensical for the said person to push and pursue a claim against his own self, so the merger results in an extinguishment of the obligation. So for example,
Cleopatra owes Ptolemy 50,000 pesos, but before Ptolemy can collect he dies and the credit passes on to his heir, Mark Antony. But sometime in 2018, Mark Antony owed Cleopatra the amount of 50,000, arising from Mark Antony's purchase of racing horse. In satisfaction of his debt, Mark Antony assigns to Cleopatra the credit he inherited from Ptolemy, so there is now a merger of creditor and a debtor in one person.
so in Article 1276, merger which takes place in the person of the principal's debtor or creditors benefits the guarantors. So confusion which takes place in the person of any of the latter does not extinguish the obligation. So the merger it is the meeting of one person of the qualities of creditor and a debtor with respect to the same obligation. And the guarantor is a person or an organization that promises to pay a debt owed by a second person if the latter fails to repay it.
So the effect of merger on guarantors, accessory follows the principal, or the guarantee being considered as the accessory obligation. The extinguishment of the accessory obligation or guarantee does not carry with it that of the principal's obligation or debt.
Example, Newmar owes Richard 300,000 pesos, guaranteed by Nizel. So, Richard assigns his right to Mariel, who assigns her right to Ernie, and Ernie assigns his right to Nizel. So, the effect of this is Newmar will still have to pay Nizel. However, the contract of guarantee is extinguished, but not Newmar's obligation to pay the 300,000. Nizel as the new creditor can demand payment from Newmar.